Good evening, everyone. We have a very special conversation this evening with John, and we'll be talking about Sooks. We'll be talking about how pop-up stores are helping brands revolutionize the high street. How today established and establishing brands are thinking of ways to reinvent themselves, to reinvent their experiences, and to get in touch with customers. So I'm going to invite John in. We're going to be talking about Sooks, about the concept, about the services, and about the added value that Sooks has been giving to retailers and how it has been revolutionizing the high streets. I'm going to be sending the invite to John. We're connecting in a minute. Hi there.
Hello.
Hi, John.
Good to see you.
Yes, it's perfect. It's clear. I can hear you very well.
Great.
Thank
Yeah.
you for joining in, John. I didn't do much of an introduction to leave the space to you to kick in, to introduce us to you, and then to be talking about Sooks in more detail. So I leave the floor to you.
Sook is a adaptive retail space. We take empty shops and we fit them out with a digitally enhanced fit out, which through our platform, anyone can drag and drop whatever digital content they want onto the walls, create a bespoke experience, and rent by the hour. So you can be in a shop at the right time for the right audience, and because we rent by the hour, you can save yourself lots of money and not be occupying shops when you don't need them.
Yes, I mean, we're talking here about a concept that is really simplifying retail experiences and giving in brands the ultimate flexibility to appear at the right time and in front of their target audiences, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's taking out all of the complications that shops entail. For many years, we have used shops in the traditional way, which is to sign a lease for 10 years, to turn that shop into what is a very expensive warehouse, to staff that shop for 7 days a week, and then only to make money out of it on a Friday or a Saturday. That system is crazy. And what we're saying is that actually a high street or a shopping center or any retail environment has a completely different audience on a Monday to what it has on a Saturday. And so why do we have these static retail experiences that don't change throughout the course of the week? In reality, a high street should be catering for something completely different on a Monday to what it does on a Saturday. And what Sook allows is for different people to occupy on that basis. But it also takes the logistical element out of shops. So part of the reason that shops have operated in this static way is because there's so much stuff inside them, and traditionally the shop is the place where you go to get the stock. They get the customer effectively to deal with that last mile. What has changed in recent years is that, and it has been made incredibly obvious by the coronavirus, is that we can all get stuff delivered to our house with much more ease, and so why not take advantage of that and leave the shop to not be part of the logistics chain, but a place to delight, to interact, to understand the experience, and also to be used for all sorts of things that are not traditionally about retail.
Right. However, we're taking retailers and customers out of their comfort zone. I mean, we're painting the high street every day, and the high street is going to be changing if this is the logic, or if this is how the road is going to go, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's going to be universal across the entire high street, but I think there's room for a significant proportion of the high street to operate on this model. And it
Right.
makes, when you think about it, you can charge an occupier a premium for a Saturday because of the high footfall. And that premium can underwrite the cost of the rest of the week which can be used by other people for all sorts of other things. And by other things, I mean amenity, community, wellness, activity, art, photography, all sorts of uses that are currently excluded from the high street. And it's got to be better for shops to be continuously active and engaged with the local audience throughout the entire week than just for there to be these peaks and troughs around where we have busy times. And that's what our model is focused on trying to achieve.
Okay, we're going to go into that detail in a few, but I want to go like back to the basics with you. Why did you call the concept Sook?
So it's a plain Arabic word for market. So I'm actually a former British Army officer, and I spoke. I was taught Arabic for a tour of Iraq about 20 years ago, and so the Arabic language has always been quite important to me. I spent a lot of my career in Abu Dhabi, and we wanted to convey the sense that a souk is a place where you know the community really sits at its core, which is what a souk is. It's not just about shops. It's the epicenter for an urban environment and community where all sorts of things around all different aspects of life take place. And it felt like a great fit for us.
Perfect. It's really intriguing because I was giving like a session, a retail session to my students earlier this morning, and we're going back to the basics of retailing, and this idea of the souk came along, and I said, I need to ask John, did he have the same inspiration from that? And it's beautiful how to say it. Going back to retail, to this community-based exchange where everything happens and where everything is very dynamic. So we're talking about a lot of dynamism, and we're going back to this aspect of retail where we do not only go to consume a specific product or service. However, are brands today equipped with the mentality of needing such a service, John?
I think there is a lot of resistance. It's true to say there's lots of the incumbent brands that are very happy with the status quo. And I think it's one of the reasons why a lot of our urban centres have become quite boring. It's become about survival of the richest brands that can survive in what is a pretty high fixed cost environment. But there is an incredible explosion of online retail. You know, when people talk about retail dying, that's not the case. It's just there are some challenges in physical space. You know, there are over 700,000 SMEs, small businesses started up in the UK during 2020. There's entrepreneurs, there's business owners, there's retailers that all want to engage with their customers in all sorts of different ways. And you know, obviously online is a growing channel for that, but that needs to be complemented with a way of actually engaging in a deeper way, in a more meaningful way with your customers, and that's what we provide. But again, it's not entirely about selling. Of course, there is a financial viability question that needs to drive the occupation of these spaces. But it can be as simple as a place to meet up, to have a workspace. And we have such diverse uses from, in December, a guy proposed to his fiancée in our space. He rented it for an hour. We have, like in Cambridge, a regular baby massage and hypnobirthing session. Equally, we have more traditional retail, but there are student events, festivals, parties, fitness. It's not just about picking up stuff and leaving with a bag, which is what we've all associated with our high streets for a really long time.
Yeah, and let's also compare a little bit the concept of Sooks to other platforms that provided for quite some time now rental of empty spaces. So how can we say that today we're being different? What services can we really highlight that are topped up the other competitive platforms that already exist?
Yeah. So, I mean, without being too mean to the incumbents, I think it's just worth talking about some of the problems with pop-up retail as it exists today. And the first problem is it's expensive and it's quite exclusive. It traditionally thrives best in fashionable high value locations where there's a bit of buzz and excitement, it doesn't serve very well the mass market. And the reason for that is a financial viability piece. If you are a young upcoming brand, you want to be somewhere sort of super cool, but you might not want to be in some of the places that need it most, provincial areas around our countries. And the reason it doesn't work as well in those less valuable locations is because, firstly, demand, but secondly, utility. So we think about selling time, not space. It's very simple, and it is obvious when you think about it. Give people access to spaces at the right times for them. Charge people appropriately for the high value hours. You can drive as much revenue on a weekend as you can for the rest of the week combined. And that allows you to effectively underwrite viability in the high value retail hours and charge really appropriately for everyone else the rest of the time. And that's the bit that is so different. It's not about, we don't believe anyone, I've yet to find an example of anyone who trades consistently or needs a space consistently from Monday to Friday. It doesn't, sorry, Monday to Sunday, I should say. But lots of people need pockets of time which are appropriate for them. The traditional pop-up model doesn't really allow for that. People do say they rent by a day, but it's in most instances they want to rent by the minimum of a week. And if you think about what that costs the business starting up, firstly, in London, you're not going to get much change out of £1,000 a day for basic rental. You then have to pay for a fit out, which can be expensive. On a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, when you're setting up, you don't trade that much. You probably spend some more money on putting on an event for your friends who come and tell you that your product's amazing. Thursday, maybe a bit more activity. Friday, Saturday, you trade, and then it's over. And that for me is a really inefficient experience for the occupier as much as it is for the retailers. They could have achieved the same in a much shorter window, and that's really the key differentiator. We're facilitating that. We're saying to you, you can be here for just an hour. And I think there's one other key point which is often missed, is that we are more like a new form of media. So we're not an agent, but we do provide sort of shops as a service. So you can occupy our space a bit like you would a billboard on a discretionary basis. So it allows us to, when we're not actively booked, to still be an open shop that is charging income to someone who's using us a bit like an interactive billboard. And that becomes really interesting for overseas brands, for charities, for artists who can effectively rent our space at a really low cost, but on a light basis. We also we'll provide staff as a service if you want it. We'll provide furniture. But what we're really most interested in doing is providing a network where you can be, as we've had, a potential occupier in Kenya, South Africa, Denmark, Holland. We provided spaces for occupiers from all of those places, and you can access a UK customer in physical space using our product without having to travel to the UK yourself. And
so you're literally meshing the geography between physical retail and providing this opportunity for a brand to exist almost everywhere through your technology to cater to a potential audience or their target audiences, right?
Well, and it's much more than that. It's so not only is there the flexibility to reach people in physical space in a way that's never existed before, there's also an analytical capability to learn from your experience. So we count everything. We count feet, and we also know exactly how our footfall sample is interacting with the digital content on our walls. So we provide really rich insights to occupiers about how to use the space. So you can, on as granular as an hour, you can see how your product performs in a certain location at a certain time. And because you can control the content on the walls, you can experiment with different color schemes, different product mixes, completely different experiences. So you could test Cambridge tomorrow, you could learn from it, and you could then test Edinburgh the following day with exactly the same digital content, completely light. You might have to move some stock. We'll staff it for you, and you can then make educated decisions about where your product sells best and when. and in what way, and we'll help you with all of that. It's all aimed at maximizing the efficiency for occupiers, which is something that has not existed for decades, because landlords, which, and I am, full disclosure, for a former landlord, have got used to putting all of the risk onto occupiers. This is turning that completely on its head.
Okay. If I may ask, so can we consider that your service would be a complementary service to other brand communications and distribution channels, or can a brand today, maybe an online brand or a newly establishing brand, rely solely on your services to deliver whatever they want to their customers?
Well, that's entirely their choice. It's a bit like when you go on to let's say Shopify, and you decide you want to create your, they give you lots of tips about adverts. You might want, in addition, some help with the content that you create, or you might be happy with what that sort of templated solution provides. We're not going to say to you, this is going to cost you a fortune. We're giving you an entry level basic price. And if you want to give it all the bells and whistles, you can, and it costs a bit extra, but that is your choice. And it's the same with the concept of, you might think that you need to be on our Oxford streets or on a Saturday, and that will cost you quite a lot of money. Our analytics might well show you that you're better off being there on a Tuesday morning, or even else in Cambridge, which is, even more cost effective. So we're giving startups, early stage businesses, sole traders, the ability to learn really quickly and cheaply how their product sells and is best used to engage with other people. And if it doesn't work, they haven't risked tens or even hundreds of thousands of pounds. You can
because we can say that we have removed the stress of existing physically and the stress of having to dress up our stores even for a short period of time to please the customer, etc. So we're saying that today we have a technological solution coupled up with a physical presence, but that maybe should be focusing on the aspect of time and the value of time for that retailer, right?
Yeah, it's an ancillary service to, if you're an online only brand, to what you already do. So if you think about it, at frankly a price that is competitive with the social media spend, you can have hours in a physical space to engage with people, where you will learn in a way that you simply can't through Facebook analytics about what your customers want and need. And that's a really interesting way of reaching out to new customers. It's well known that within the catchment area of physical space, online brands will sell 100% more. So it should be part of a sort of omni-channel strategy. And if you're a D2C brand, which is really the high value brands that we target, it's a brilliant way of engaging with your customers, and they'll be in your space, for minutes, as opposed to when you put something on a device, where if you're lucky, if you get an eyeball for seconds.
I wanted to I tried to like do a earlier like a screen recording of how people could go into the website. However, I would like to go on with you into detailing now how we could really go from point A, like logging onto the Sooks website, choosing whatever is convenient for me, and how we could take it from there, how your team could really help brands add on all of the services that you provide, and how you can help brands add value through the services that you're providing. And I'm showing like just this little important video that that was on the website. I thought it's important for people to see it, right?
Yeah, so I mean, it's sook.space. All of the questions are answered clearly on that website. But in effect, we are a tech and a services business. So our platform is what makes all of this really easy. You can book everything. It's as simple as booking a seat on an airplane. And if you can't handle any of the elements on our website, for instance, the content curation, which we've made really easy. You can create an entire shop and walk around it in 3D using Google Slides or Canva. So it couldn't be simpler. That's not to say everyone can do it. My mum would struggle, for instance, but you know, like if you can't do it, we will help you. It might cost money, but we are shops as a service. We are trying to provide a completely integrated service for whatever it is you need to do. If you are based in Australia and you want to sell your swimming trunks on Oxford Street, as we have interest at the moment, you just need to get your stock to us. We will receive it. We will staff it for you with staff who are appropriate to your market. We will help you with the content. We'll let you understand the analytics. If you don't get any of it, we'll pick the appropriate furniture for you, because we also have a completely bespoke and very flexible furniture solution. And we'll store everything for you on site. So it is, the aim is that you, as a retailer, if it's retail you want to do, because you might be an office worker or whatever, but as an occupier, you do not need to worry about, frankly, the pain that occupying physical space entails. We take care of all of that for you, from simpler to no fit out to zero ongoing commitment to clear pricing, etc., etc.
Right. Perfect. I mean, we were looking at all of these solutions, and it's always important for me to highlight this on this channel, because I have met with a lot of people, and most of who work in pop-up stores and pop-up retail, because this is also a research area of interest. And by the time the pandemic started and moved on, we have seen how technological items merged with retail spaces and started offering solutions. And then we came along with everything that has to do with social selling and live streaming, etc. Right? And so would you think that at a certain point also you'd also provide the space for the brand to talk on one-to-one levels through your platforms, through your existing space?
Yeah, I mean, why not? There are so many ancillary areas where we can take this. I mean, we as a startup are very much focused on our core, value proposition, and it is so easy to get distracted because there are so many people excited about what we could offer. And so for now, we're very much focused on, purely being a shop as a service. But the other day we were talking about essentially replicating every occupier who's been in our spaces, given that they're already creating a shop in virtual reality before they occupy it, creating a Minecraft or a virtual reality shopping center that exists in perpetuity, so you can reach out to all of those brands. My goal really is that, and what makes me proudest of Sook is when people use it for things that we haven't thought of ourselves. And we want it to be a tool that is as flexible as possible, that people's imaginations can run wild. Sometimes the opposite is true. Sometimes people actually are intimidated by it and don't, there are some people who are not massively creative and they need a lot of help. But the others, we have had some incredible gaming applications, essentially some brilliant representations of visual art, which I think is fantastic. Some of the places that you can take this to with LFDs and QR codes is really interesting. So all of our sites are designed to be completely integrated with the personal devices of the people, of the customers that visit our occupiers. So to give you an example of what that means, you would come into our store and immediately, just like you would scan, I mean, in the UK we have a test and trace system at the moment for Corona, but you could scan a QR code that would take you to a web app that looks and feels exactly like the physical space, and that is used by the occupier to direct the customer to whatever they want on their mobile phone device. It could be a competition, it could be social media, it could be a sales channel. What's brilliant about that interactivity is, firstly, you can leave the environment of the shop to look beautiful and engaging without being polluted by clutter. But also it's completely corona friendly. You don't have to talk to anyone, and you don't have to touch anything except for your own device. And then finally, you can complete that customer journey when you get home. You don't have to make a purchase in store. And we don't believe it's about that. We believe the store is an important part of a journey, but not necessarily the point of sale. I think that's really important. I talked about the logistics piece earlier. Spaces are not, they don't need to be about that. We don't need to be getting our customers to be, effectively part of the logistics chain themselves, because we all now know that you could order something in store if you wanted it, probably be at home by the time you got there yourself. So
Yeah.
why around the shop carrier?
So we're creating more touch points that are convenient to customers. Earlier in the live, actually maybe last Wednesday, I did a live with Ian Scott, and I think we mentioned Sook as well during the live, and we're talking about this symbiotic retailing. We're talking about different touch points where many things could happen, and the sales does not always have to happen in the pop-up or voila. And saying that today we have the possibility to receive all of these products at home, and lots of ideas of how brands could direct or redirect customers to maybe add on this experience that they are willing to deliver, right?
Yeah.
And John, I'm curious, like statistically, with your service today, are established brands, like well-known brands, interested in hiring you or your service to add on their existing experiences to customers, or are
Yeah.
there?
Well, they're interested in us for a couple of different reasons, and I'm going to talk about retailers and non-retailers. So
Yeah.
what's interesting for the big brands that the household names, is there's a movement towards D2C that's well documented, but realistically, no one really wants their own shops. It's a pain having a real estate portfolio. But using Sook, a commitment to us for 20 hours a week, which will cost a fraction of having an actual traditional store, gives us enough market certainty to go and engage with pretty much any landlord, certainly in the UK and potentially abroad, because they're excited about some of their market risk being taken care of. The landlords actually fund the Sook business. They take the risk on it, so it really helps. And then the brand themselves can be there for the right hours on a regular cadence, sort of almost weekly. So we're having discussions where, in effect, the brands underwrite our expansion strategy, which is exciting for us because as a small startup, we need partnerships with people with cash. We're not rich, but not a rich business yet. We have to prove lots of things before we will be. But it's a really interesting and risk-free way of scaling. But the other thing that's sort of super interesting for those brands is that they can then go into places where they would never ever have been able to justify a store in a normal scenario, because it's just not the right demographic. But if they're dropping in there for specific periods, the buzz that they create and the drive they get allows them to engage with markets that they haven't been able to reach previously. So that's quite exciting. The other is not so much brands, but perhaps amenity retail. So if you think about, and I won't mention any names, but if you think about retail banking, branches across the UK, I don't know what it's like in France, but in the UK, bank branches are closing at a faster rate than pubs. It's a problem. It's a big loss for communities in many instances, particularly the older generation, when they lose that banking amenity. With a Sook, a banking branch can have a human interaction point 6 days a week from 12 till 3, and then not be there the rest of the time. It will cost, again, a fraction of operating that standard branch. You achieve nearly everything that you would have achieved in the branch, because people go to their branch at lunchtime generally. I know it's not completely true, but it provides a really good alternative to there not being any branches, and allows you to have that human outreach. Similarly, for the way that brands can now engage doesn't need to be about stock, So imagine if you're a sports apparel brand, why not effectively sponsor local wellness classes? You are not only doing something wonderful for the community, but you have got an absolutely captive audience to market product to.
Yeah.
And they are happy to accept that trade off if they are saving money on something that's really beneficial to them. So
Right.
there are all sorts of collaborations that this opens up, and and blended interests effectively that work really well to support not just the goals of brands, but also drive sustainable revenue for landlords, and at the same time open up, frankly, underutilized and in many cases empty assets for use by the community, which is really fundamentally what it's all about.
Mm.
There's no point us having 250,000 empty shops in the UK when they could all be doing great things for millions of people.
So we're into this concept of reviving our city centers, our small communities, as you said, and you're not in the logic, again, just to repeat it for those who came a little bit late to the conversation with Sook, we're not solely looking at prime or premium locations. We're looking at locations that make more sense, right, to the brand and to the community.
Yeah, it's a mass market solution. It's designed to be so. I mean, that is tempered by our own strategy of, I mean, we have opened a store on Oxford Street, but I always actually use Box Park as an example. And
Yeah,
Box Park started in Shoreditch, and I think that has underwritten its success. Shoreditch was the right place. It's very fashionable. It made Box Park a huge success, and now it's in Wembley and Croydon and other places. But it probably wouldn't have worked as well if it had started in Croydon or Wembley. I
yeah,
mean, I'd be interested to know what Roger Wade thinks about that. But there's an element of tactic, but no, absolutely, we are looking to be a mass market solution, and our desire is to be in the places that need Sook most. Sorry, my lights keep failing. We want to be in places where there are lots of empty shops and where there is a requirement for some reactivation, because importantly, there are consumers in even places with the most dead of high streets, and it's really important that those places are addressed as much as the Oxford Street problem is.
yeah. Let's talk a little bit about, actually, you mentioned it a little bit earlier. I was curious to know if the business had enough clients helping it like survive and grow, but we talked about it a little bit earlier. John, in terms of distributions channels and communications channels today with Sooks and this service that you're offering, are we also blending distributions and communications? Are we creating a different type of channel here?
I hope so. I mean, I think it is really important to reactivate these spaces, and you can do it in all sorts of different ways. And at its core, it's digital content on screens, which has massive similarities to the out of home media world. It's making use of a different asset, and it's perhaps it is more immersive than a billboard. You go in, you're surrounded by walls, you can interact with the space. Like, for instance, we have an amazing art exhibit, which you could do with a billboard, but it might not work as well, where it's completely interactive with your mobile phone device. You don't need to upload anything, you just need to scan a code, and suddenly you can zoom into microscopic detail in these incredible images of insects. It's all about that, the intersection between the digital and the physical customer experience, and that's what underwrites the high value retail hours. And the rest of the time is about an affordable option for everyone, be it education, be it office meetups, be it wellness, or whatever.
Right. It's very interesting. And it really comes as, I don't know, as a new solution, as an enlightenment for brands and any other entities who wish to just get out there. Um, In your opinion now, of course, thinking about Sook has been maybe a result of a desire to move on with the high street or give more solutions. Now you have done it and you have seen how it's working. How do you see the future, or a little bit down the road, how do you see Sooks developing?
Well, it's really interesting because we have quite a lot of interest from non-shop unit landlords. So we had our first approaches from hotels, from, well, they are retail locations, but airports, and also residential developers. So people who are building flats who have lobbies or sort of amenity areas that just don't get used for anything. There's nothing that frustrates me more than inefficient sort of spaces. When I was at Grosvenor, I was very involved in the delivery of the Gagosian gallery there, and it's an amazing space which does exactly what Gagosian wants it to do, but it's also quite an inefficient space in terms of pure utility, as most art galleries are. And what we're all about is trying to take those spaces and make them
Giving
more,
them life.
have life, drive income, and be used for all other things. So we have had also an approach for sort of basically the Sook platform for what are they called? My brain's not working. Big like trade fairs, for instance, because suddenly what people really love about it is that you can control it remotely. You can sit at home, you can design a shop, you can walk around it in 3D, you can order the furniture and the staff, you know exactly what your shop's going to look like without ever having to visit in the physical space. And that opens up so many avenues to cater for all sorts of different things.
Yeah.
I mean, we have, one of our goals is to sell a product or a service from every country in the world. I would love international brands to be able to reach UK consumers and vice versa, and to remove, particularly in this, post Brexit era, I think I don't want to be robbed of some of the amazing product services that don't exist in the UK. And equally, I want British brands to be able to succeed overseas. And so what we really want is a network that facilitates that. And ideally that would be global. We just need to establish really that there is definitely a threshold of, I suppose, retail premium beneath which a Sook would not be viable. We don't know what it is yet.
Yeah. I'm also curious to know, I know we've talked about it, but the rate of vacancy today in retail and on the high street is scary. Are there enough brands, enough people who are rethinking how to fill them up? I mean, are we going to be able to fill our high streets and unused spaces as efficiently as we want to?
No, we're not. Unfortunately, this is certainly the biggest kind of correction in my lifetime. There's no doubt in my mind that the high street has to contract in terms of number of units. I think it's inevitable, and there are already steps in the UK to really accommodate other uses, which I support as long as it's done in a balanced and measured way. That doesn't mean that it's over for physical retail. It's just bad retail is going to die, and decent retail will survive. And decent retail, in my mind, is perversely not actually retail. Well, it is retail, but it's doing it in a completely different way and having the flexibility to not be a warehouse full of stuff. It's going to be fascinating to watch the next few years. It's a bit like someone's just turned the computer off and on again. It's solved some problems that needed solving, but it unfortunately in a very painful way for a lot of the people involved in the businesses that have suffered. I hope that what we see at the end of this is actually some amazing green shoots of recovery. I actually I presented to number 10 Downing Street, which is where the UK Prime Minister lives, yesterday. And they are very serious about a levelling up agenda in the UK, which is about providing opportunities for everyone.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not quite sure they really can articulate exactly what that levelling up agenda is, other than a desire to be more fair. And our high streets are one really good opportunity to do that, because the digital economy can boom and can accommodate a lot of people, but there is still going to be a need to replace the 250,000 of job losses in the retail sector that were lost last year alone. And some solutions need to happen really quickly. So we hope that Sook will will play an important part in that grassroots recovery.
Okay, I'm keen to just know what's the definition of bad retailing. That's my first question, and my second question would be, do you think that we are also in a movement of micro brand development or micro retailing development? Like these are.
So, I mean, you had Ian on the other day. He'd give you a much better answer to what is.
Just like, just having a global insight from different perspectives is important. That's why I was a bit curious to know.
It's a static solution that doesn't change or react to time. I mean, as you know, we really focused on time. If your shop exists purely to be a distribution center for stuff, that's bad retail. But incorporate other elements, then that's an improvement. And as I say, I think I'm probably sounding like a broken record, but retail that doesn't consider amenity or purpose is bad retail as well. It cannot. A physical shop cannot just be about satisfying a business plan or for a private equity group, which sadly in so many instances it has become. It needs focus on the customer, and the customer is completely different on a Monday to what it is on a Saturday. In answer to your other question about sort of microbrands, I think this is what's so exciting, is that this is the era where, frankly, small brands can compete with massive brands and do it quite quickly. Like, I mean, Gymshark's an overused example, and they have actually been around quite a long time. But isn't that, to see that them competing with the giants is really impressive, and so much of that is driven by engagement on TikTok above all other things. So we've had some brilliant engagements with Depop. And I'm so unfashionable, I didn't even know what Depop was when I started Sook. And so Depop sellers have been using our South Molton Street store. The first Depop seller came, and she actually occupied our space in sort of late September of this year, which was a really weird retail time. It was it wasn't locked down, but no one knew what was going on. It was pretty
uncertain.
Yeah, and she took the space for 5 hours. The first time she'd ever had a shop. She was only 23. And in the biggest sales that had been done in the entire month of September in South Molton Street was £3,000, which is just astonishingly low. In 5 hours, she did nearly £1,500. So it just kind of shows that you can engage in a completely different way. She has 35,000 Instagram followers. That helped. And she drove her own footfall. I'm sure part of her success was the fact that the Gen Z guys don't care about Corona as much. But also she created her own buzz. And it didn't cost her much money. And she performed as well as she would have done if she'd sat there passively for a week, and it cost her much. So, I think there is a really, that's a kind of just one insight into how I think microbrands can take over the world and really challenge the incumbents. And rightly so. It's about time, isn't it?
It is. I mean, there has been lots of movement, and we can see it, and we can see that change, and we can see how we have become more receptive to things that are not unconventional, or that come and confront like conventional types of retailing, and how they are exciting us and providing us with novelty. And I believe that customers, they are looking for that. So
Well,
yeah.
customers care now as much about the story and the purpose
Yeah.
and the sustainability of a brand as they do about the products that are sitting in front of them.
Yeah.
So if your physical space isn't addressing those and telling the story behind all of those elements, as well as showcasing the stock, you're missing a trick. And that's where digital content becomes an incredibly powerful tool
Yeah.
for engagement.
Exactly. And this human element, like the social element, the social dimension of retail, is, I think, kicking off more than ever, and retaking, I think, its weight in the retail experience. John, thank you so much. I mean, I have a zillion questions to ask you, and the conversation would never end. But I believe that all the main aspects that I wanted to ask about Sook and that are related to the concept, I asked too. However, is there anything else that you wanted to add and that we didn't cover during this talk?
No, I mean, thanks for having me on. Obviously, I look forward to meeting you in Paris when we bring Sook.
Hopefully, yes.
We're coming to Poland first, but hope to be in France well, maybe later this year, more likely the year afterwards. So, yeah, great to meet you, and thanks for talking to me.
Thank you, John, and thank you everyone for joining us. This session will be directly available on IGTV, and I will be sharing it later on YouTube. So those who missed the beginnings could always go back to it. Thank you so much, John, and good luck with the rest. And we hope that you keep delivering our retail spaces with a lot of creativity and opportunities. Have a nice evening.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Ciao.